treat storytelling like any other skill that you wanted to master and learn it from somebody who knows, as opposed to just winging it.
Hi, y'all. You're listening to Optimal Instinct with Trish, and I am Trish Tagley,
a business efficiency expert who uses a one-day summit to get your clients to stay longer, pay more, and refer often. Today, our guest is Paul Smith, a leading expert in business storytelling. He's one of Inc. magazine's top 100 leadership speakers for 2018, a storytelling coach and best-selling author of 4 books, Lead with a Story, Sell with a Story, both of which hit #1 on Amazon's bestseller list. He also wrote Parenting with a Story, and the latest is 10 Stories Great Leaders Tell. He has an MBA from the Wharton School and is a former consultant at Accenture and a 20-year veteran of Procter Gamble. Hey, Paul, welcome to the show.
Hey, Trish, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Great. And why don't we just jump right in? So the first question to ask is what is the problem that you solve?
Yeah, so I help people who want to communicate and influence more effectively. You know, whether that's to help them be a better leader or marketer or salesperson or even a parent, as you mentioned. And so I do that by teaching them to use the art and the science of storytelling, as opposed to just bossing people around or giving them a list of reasons that they should buy something from you.
And second question, what are the common mistakes people make when they're trying to solve that problem?
Yeah, well, there's so many, but in our limited time, I'll give you 3 or 4. The first is not even telling a story when they think they're telling a story, and people do that all the time. You know, they'll tell you, "Oh, our marketing plan tells a great story, our mission statement tells a great story, our brand logo is a great story." Well, maybe, but probably not. They're probably it could be a nice brand logo, but a story is something special. It's a narrative about something that happened to someone. So, you know, there's a time, a place, a main character. That main character's got a goal. There's usually someone or something getting in the way of that goal, and there are events that transpire along the way and hopefully resolve themselves nicely in the end in either a success or a failure. That's a story. But if you just tell people, look, here are the 5 things you need to go do to be successful in this company, well, that's not a story. That's a piece of advice. It may be a great piece of advice, but it's not a story. Or if you tell somebody, look, here are 3 reasons why you need to buy my product. Well, that's a sales pitch. Nothing wrong with a sales pitch. You need sales pitches, especially if you're in sales, but it's not a story. So if you really want to capture people's attention, you need to tell some stories, not all the time, but some of the time, and you need to recognize what a story is. And a story is not those other things. It's when you're telling a narrative about something that happened to someone. So that's the biggest problem, is they think they're telling stories and they're not even telling stories. But a couple of other problems is apologizing or asking permission to tell a story. And that's just awful. I mean, and you've heard that happen before, right? You'll be in a meeting and somebody raise their hand and say, can I tell a story? I promise it'll just take a minute, right? They're apologizing and asking permission to tell a story. Mm-hmm. Leaders don't ask permission to lead, just lead, right? Never apologize or ask permission to tell a leadership story. Just tell it. Right? I mean, if you don't think your story is as important as what was going to be said anyway, then for goodness sake, don't tell it. But if you do think it's valuable, just tell it. And then maybe the last one is your story shouldn't be too long. And that's a very common problem. And yeah, you're laughing, and we all know we do it. We'll go on and on with 10 or 15 minutes of this long, boring, irrelevant story. And stories that you tell at work for a purpose, for a purpose. If you're just telling people how your weekend is because you're socializing, do whatever you want. Mm-hmm. But if you're telling a story for a productive business reason, like leadership or sales or marketing, 2 to 4 minutes, that's it. They need to be focused, and you need to think about them ahead of time and plan how you're going to tell it. You shouldn't just, start talking and rambling and tell this, long, boring story. And that's what I teach people to do, is to tell a succinct, focused story that people will appreciate and not get bored with.
Yeah, there's a lot of times that we have people start out with a story, and then when they get to the middle point, they're I
They forgot why they were telling it. Right. Exactly.
So precisely, if you're to the point, you're succinct, then you get to your point.
Yeah.
So based on your answer, what is the number one tip that you could give a leader?
Yeah, if I had to pick one, it would be, well, then study the art and the science of storytelling like you would any other skill that you wanted to master. Now, storytelling is definitely an art form, like music or dance or painting. But if you wanted to learn how to do those things and you weren't a naturally gifted dancer or musician, well, what would you do? You'd go take a class, right?
Yes.
You'd go learn from somebody who knows, right? You wouldn't just buy a guitar and sit it by your bed and hope that by osmosis at night you'd learn how to play, right?
That's true.
You'd go take guitar lessons. If you wanted to learn to paint, you'd go take painting lessons. At a minimum, read a book, watch some YouTube videos, from people who know. So the main tip would be treat storytelling like any other skill that you wanted to master and learn it from somebody who knows, as opposed to just winging it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. A lot of people do think that, I've told stories before.
Right.
So I'm sure I can make this one sound good.
Right.
But like you said, there's a certain art and science to it that needs to be learned. So that's great. So, okay, what should I have asked you that I didn't?
Yeah, well, probably since you mentioned the name of that last book, 10 Stories Great Leaders Tell, we should probably tell people what the 10 stories are. We're not teasing them. So the book is designed, it's a really short 1 hour read. It's designed just to let you know what the 10 most important stories are that leaders need to tell. And it gives you an example of each one and then a few tips on how to craft your own. But just knowing what the 10 are is helpful. So I'll mention what those are right now. So the first 4 go together because they're about setting the direction for the organization. So that's where we came from. So that's a founding story. Why we can't stay there. It's a case for change story. Where we're going. So that's a vision story. And how we're going to get there. So that's a strategy story. Right? So I think if any leader, if you can tell those 4 stories, you're more likely to get the organization to go where you need them to go. So the next 4 go together as well, but they're more about who we are as an organization. So that's what we believe. That's a corporate value story. Who we serve. So that's a customer story, a story about who your customer is. What we do for our customers. So that's a kind of a classical sales story, customer success story. And then number 8 is how we're different from our competitors. So I call that a marketing story because marketing is typically about differentiating yourself from the rest of your competitors. And then the last 2 kind of go together as well, but they're more personal to you as the leader. So that's why I lead the way I do. So that's a personal leadership philosophy story to help them understand how you lead. And the last one is why you should want to work here. Now, you being the person who I'm talking to, right? So so I call that a recruiting story. And those 2 help you. Obviously, every leader's job is to bring in talented people to the organization and have them follow your leadership. It's not just the job of HR to do that. So those are the 10 I settled on. And I think if you're looking for a place to start with, well, if I'm going to learn to tell stories, what stories should I be telling? Those are probably the most important 10 to start with.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like those are the stories that will not only keep business going, but give the people that work their purpose. And also, as you said, understand your philosophy and how you lead. Yeah. So in a very succinct manner, which we're coming up with that word again, you're allowing people to understand how it is to communicate through stories, and especially in important areas in business.
Right.
So
right. And I think leaders need a lot more stories than that. But if you're looking for a place to start, I think those are the most important 10.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, great. So we've come to the end of this podcast. And I just, again, check Paul Smith out on Amazon. He's got a couple of books on there that I think business owners, leaders, organizational leaders will benefit from. And thank you so much again, Paul. And I look forward to speaking with you again at some point when you have more books out. And thank you. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thanks for having me on. Cheers.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you very much for joining us on Optimal Instinct with Trish. If you've enjoyed what you've heard, head on over to iTunes, subscribe, and if you really enjoy the content, leave us a well-appreciated review. If you are looking to create an environment that partners your desire for more profitable, more productive, and greater referability in client relationships, combined with sustained team morale, then I suggest you head over to clientvaluedemo.com to learn more about the C's value model. Talk soon.